Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here with an update on the R. Kelly situation that's going on. It's not an update on the actual case, but on some civil suits that have been filed against him. And so regardless of how you feel about him, how you feel about the case, if you believe the accusers, if you believe him, people really need to be paying attention to this case because there is so much that is going on, so much questionable behavior from the government in this case that we simply cannot turn a blind eye. We cannot get in our feelings and say, oh, I believe all victims. I believe women. You know, I don't think that these women are lying. He's been doing this for a long time. None of that matters because once this case goes down, and these people are allowed to get away with the stuff that they're doing, it sets what's called a precedence. And so when you hear about attorneys arguing cases, they have to bring up case law to support their position. And then the prosecution brings up cases to support their position. And then when the judge is ruling, they're looking at case law on how they should rule in whatever motions or whatever is coming up in a case. And so what this case with R. Kelly is going to do is it is going to set a precedence that will be used on other people that could possibly be your family member, your friend. And it's not just about what the actual charges are against them, but the maneuvers that they are putting into place, just the manipulation and things that they're doing, how they're violating his amendments. There's like 4 or 5 amendments that have, come out that people, that even legal professionals are saying are being violated. And back in October, there was a bill that was passed that basically supported, that prosecution has to turn over discovery. They have to turn it over in a timely manner. And this is a case that had been going on for quite some time, for several years. And then several senators proposed an amendment to this ruling, and it's called the Brady versus Maryland, I believe it is the case that was being argued. And so they're basically saying that a judge has to make a public notification that the prosecution has to turn over discovery within a timely manner. And so as you all may know, if you've been following this case, is that the prosecution is not giving the defense for R. Kelly the discovery that they have. They're withholding names of people who are supposed to be alleged victims who are named in the indictments. They're withholding information, saying that they're still reviewing tapes. They're still reviewing recordings. They're still reviewing evidence. And in the Eastern District of New York, they have come out point blank and said, we're not giving you the names of these people, and we're not giving you this discovery until at least 2 weeks before the trial begins. And so what this new ruling states is that the judge has to make an announcement before the prosecution and before the defense, basically telling them that they have to turn over this information, that, they can't be withholding information. And so what I noticed is that there are several cases, that I go online and download the information on, not necessarily that I'm following the cases, but, to do videos, but just for my own interest. And I noticed that the judges, once that ruling came down, judges sent out letters. On every case that I looked at, they sent the letter out, stating what the rules are, what needs to be done, except for R. Kelly's case. I saw that letter on Don Russell's case. I saw the letter on one of the other guys that's involved, that they arrested, that they're trying to tied to this R. Kelly case. I saw it on the Tim Norman with the Sweetie Pies case. So this letter has gone out, but I have yet to see it appear on R. Kelly's record that the judge actually sent that letter out, unless she sent it since I last checked his account. So what I want to talk about today, just another thing going on. So before he was arrested back in July of 2020, before he was arrested in July of 2019, there were two lawsuits filed against him. One was by the Midwest Commercial Properties people that owned the building that his studio was in. And so they filed this lawsuit saying that they had to get bike rent. That was what it started out with. They were trying to get bike rent. And then they somehow got a lien and a judgment on his bank account, where they were able to seize the money out of his bank account. But then that was overturned and they had to return the money. So now they found out that Sony was holding like $1.5 million in a royalty account. And so they asked the judge for a lien on that money, so Sony couldn't distribute this money. And so a judge ruled in their favor. Now, when they initially filed their lawsuit, they were only trying to get the bike rent. But then they amended the lawsuit to now it's up to like it's up to $3.4 million. When it initially started, it was like a few $100,000 what he actually owed. So now they're claiming that they've got to go in and do all this work on this building in order to put it on the market and sell it or to rent it. So a judge awarded them the $3.4 million. Then in the other case was this girl, Heather Williams, who can't decide if her name is Heather or if her name is Dawn, if she met him walking down the street and he asked her to be in a music video, or if she met him in a restaurant and gave her the phone number and the mom took the phone number. Like, I'm so confused by all of that to even begin with. But nevertheless, she filed a lawsuit in March of last year and she was seeking $50,000. Then she went up to $400,000. And then there was a default because the attorneys that were handling his civil suits, they quit back in March. And I believe, not in March, but in January. And I believe that they quit because there just wasn't enough money to pay them. And, whatever happened, they quit. So a judge gave R. Kelly like 30 days to find legal representation. But prior to all of this happening, he had entered in that case that he was going to plead the fifth because he couldn't give testimony in a civil suit where this person is also one of the alleged victims in the Cook County case. Nobody would do that. Nobody would advise their client to do that. So the judge when she first filed the suit, R. Kelly was locked up. She served him while he was locked up. And as he was, being bailed out, they handed him the paper and he didn't pay any attention to the paper. He didn't read the paper. So the judge entered a default. So then the attorneys were hired. They were able to get the default overturned. So fast forward to January of this year, the attorneys quit for whatever reason. So the judge gave him 30 days to find legal representation. But at this point, he had been locked up for like 6 or 7 months. So how is he going to find legal representation when he's in jail? So one of his former attorneys, a guy named Brian Nix, he stepped in to take over the case. So he was successful in getting them to reverse the default. And at the time that the default was in place, the second default was in place, she had gone from the $50,000 to the $400,000. So then there was like the whole COVID thing happened. They were having hearings over the phone, conference calls. And then it was just like a lot of back and forth. And then all of a sudden in like October, there was a judgment entered in her favor and the judge awarded her $4 million. And I'm sitting here saying, how can somebody who's locked up in jail, who is in jail during the corona pandemic. How are you awarding judgments of that magnitude? 3.4 million to the commercial property owner, 4 million to this girl. So then these two go and meet together, and so they're trying to decide how they're going to divvy up this $1.5 million. And so the girl says she'll take 500,000, the 500,000. The property company can take the $1 million, but they outslicked her because her lawyer sent a letter to Sony, asking, for this money. But the real estate company, they sent an email. And so I'm going to read this letter to you, and then I'll pick back up with the point I want to make here as to why this is so unfair and people need to be paying attention. So this is an article with the Chicago Sun-Times, and it says, Judge orders Sony to give $1.5 million in royalties to R. Kelly's former landlord. Earlier this year, Kelly's former landlord, a Wisconsin-based property management company, secured a $3.5 million judgment against the singer to cover unpaid rent and repair costs at the studio space at 219 North Justine Street. And I think I said 3.4 million earlier, but it was 3.5. So it says a Cook County judge has ordered Sony to give all the money in R. Kelly's royalties account, more than $1.5 million, to the singer's former landlord to cover past due rent. Earlier this year, Kelly's former landlord, Midwest Commercial Funding, a Wisconsin-based property management company, secured a $3.5 million judgment against the singer to cover unpaid rent and repair costs at the studio space. In 2019, Kelly was sued by a woman who alleged she was abused by the singer, and she was awarded $4 million last March. The woman is one of Kelly's 4 alleged victims in his pending criminal case in Cook County. Both the former landlord and alleged victim made claims on the $1.5 million in Kelly's royalties account with Sony. The attorney for Kelly's alleged victim contacted the record label on August 17th via the Postal Service with a citation to discover assets, and Sony acknowledged the citation on August 25th. An attorney for Midwest Commercial Funding, meanwhile, opted to email Sony's legal department on August 19th, and that citation was acknowledged on August 24th. On November 30th, Cook County Judge Patrick Hannigan awarded the royalties to Midwest Commercial Funding. In his written order, Hannigan said the Midwest Commercial Funding entitled to the money because Sony acknowledged the company's citation before acknowledging that of Kelly's alleged victim. And so it says, this matter comes down to the timing of the service, Hannigan wrote. The judge also ordered Midwest Commercial Funding to maintain a lien on Kelly's royalties account, and Sony is directed and ordered to turn over any sums accruing to Kelly's royalty accounts in the future, up to the total sum of MCF's judgment of $3.484 million. Once Kelly's royalties account satisfies what he owes to Midwest Commercial Funding, any money to the account will then go to Kelly's alleged victim until her $4 million award is paid, Hannigan ordered. 2 days after Hannigan handed down his order, an attorney for Kelly's alleged victim filed a motion for reconsideration, arguing that a citation to discover assets may not be sent or received via email. The court's analysis of MCF's lien priority based on emailing it to Sony on August 19, 2020 is an error in this court's previous application of existing law, which merits reconsideration, Jeffrey Dutchman, the woman's attorney, wrote in this motion. Last month, Dutchman told the Sun-Times he tried to compromise with Midwest Commercial Funding's attorney, Jamie Burns. Dutchman said he was rebuffed after he suggested Midwest Commercial Funding take $1 million and leave the rest for his client. They want all of it, Dutchman previously said. They have their building, but my client lost her childhood. Kelly treated the warehouse at 219 North Justine Street from Midwest Commercial Funding until he rented it, until he was evicted in January 2019 over his failure to pay rent. A highly publicized inspection by the city's Department of Building revealed numerous code violations. The building is for rent and is being renovated according to a rental listing of the property. Kelly faces criminal charges, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes into all of that, and that he's being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in the Loop. Okay, so here's my thing. This just seems so unjustified and so wrong. And if Sony has any moral fiber within them, they need to step in, because they got the money to do it. They got the firepower to do it. They need to step in and file an appeal, step in and stop this nonsense. I mean, it is at the state level. They can definitely take this up, appeal to the Supreme Court if they have to. But to just sit back and hand this man's hard-earned money over to these vultures is just crazy to me. Because you tell me, what is that man going to do to that building for $3.4 million? It wasn't like he had done anything, like everything that we saw from those pictures when the city inspectors went in was like movable. It wasn't like he built things or tore things out. It was just basically furniture there, partitions, that type of stuff. So I'm not sure what it is that they're claiming that they're going to do to that building that they deserve this $3.4 million. Regardless, for someone to be in prison, I mean, just take R. Kelly out of the situation and think about yourself. Say that something happens, whatever. Say you get into a car accident and they say that, and the other person died, and they charge you with negligent homicide or vehicular homicide. And so you get locked up. Imagine sitting in jail, barely can afford your attorney. You can't get a bond to get out of jail. And while you're in jail, somebody takes your home, they take your car, they take all your money that's in the bank. How would that make you feel when you're saying that you're innocent and you haven't had a chance to fight your case, and somebody just comes in and takes everything that you have? And I just think that there has to be some kind of law that says that a person can't, other than pleading the fifth, that a person can't incriminate themselves in a criminal case while trying to deal with a civil case. And then there needs to be something, if it's not already, like maybe it needs to be put on the books, that if somebody is incarcerated and being denied bond, that any other legal action against them has to cease and desist. Because this just seems so unfair, but it's just in line with everything else that has happened, all the things that have taken place, from the denying of the bond for over a year. Like, why does a person who has not been convicted of a crime be forced to sit in jail for a year and a half and counting? I mean, that's what happened to what was it, Khalif Bowers, the one that was in jail for 3 years waiting trial. And then when he finally got out, he committed suicide. Like, this is mental torture, because people won't plead out, accept a deal or that type of thing. And so to me, it just seems like really, really unjust that all of this is being taken place. And then for the criminal attorneys to be quiet and not saying anything about any of this, like this is not their concern. And I hope it's clicking in their brain that if a judge is giving every penny that this man has to these people, to these vultures, that's not leaving any money for them. So, Greenberg said last year that when the money dries up, he's off the case. So does that mean he's getting ready to leave the case now that the money is theoretically going to these people and will be going to these people until the full well, 4 million and 3.5 million until the full 7.5 million is gone. Like, do you know how many years it would take based on his current earnings of like $200,000 to $250,000 a quarter? It's going to take 7.5 years to get this money back. So where is the money for his defense? And so they are basically denying him a defense by taking the money. And I wouldn't be so surprised to find out that the feds are involved in this and telling this judge, yeah, take that money, because they don't want him to have the money to be able to defend himself. They don't want him to have a legal team that can, have resources that can go out and investigate these allegations, that can pull records, pull information. They want him broke. They want him, dejected. We already gone through the thing where he was beaten by the Latin Kings guy. He's in a prison where COVID is rising. There was a story about a week ago about the number of cases of COVID that are in the MCC right now. And so they're going back on lockdown, which means that he was already limited, in the time that he had to spend with his attorney. So now that is about to be limited even more because of the spike in all these cases of COVID-19. And so I just wanted to bring this to you guys. I know I haven't covered this case as much, in the past, probably 6 months, because it was just becoming so overwhelming. It was draining. There was just some other stuff going on where it didn't seem that people were as interested in what was actually happening with the case as much as they are interested in the drama going on around the people who are bringing the information about the case. So I was like, you know what? Let me step back, because I'm not getting paid for this. I'm doing this because I was really interested in the case and interested in following the case. But when I read this story about those royalties, I said, let me get on here and talk about this, like get this out of my head, because I just can't believe that this is going on. And then I'm also wondering, because remember, Drea won a settlement where they were supposed to garnish his royalties. So is these different royalty accounts, is she still getting the money that she was trying to get with the child support? Like, a lot is going on. And then I'm wondering if these other people, who got their lawsuits through Susan Logan's, if they see how easy it is, for these people to get the money, are they now going to come back and try and argue their case and get a lien saying that they never received the full amount? Because I don't think Geronda ever got all the money she claimed she was supposed to get. The Lanita Carter chick, I don't think she got all of the money. And then there was somebody else who didn't collect all the money that they claimed that they were supposed to get. And so can these people now come back and say, well, I want to lien on the money also? And I was trying to figure out, because he would have his royalties from streaming. He would have his royalties from being like the writer and composer. And then there's there's like 3 or 4 royalties that a writer, composer, singer, performer, I think those are the 4, okay, get from the music. And then Sony is getting the bulk of the money. So you figure if he has $1.5 million in this particular royalty account, how many millions of dollars is Sony collecting every quarter off of his music? And then a question that also is coming up in my mind is, should his fans stop streaming his music? They were streaming the music, to rebut the Mute R. Kelly agenda that was going on. And to make sure that he was still getting money. But now that the money is going to the vultures, should the fans stop, streaming his music? Should there be a call out, like, don't let these people capitalize off of these stories that haven't been proven? Because you figure they awarded this Heather Williams chick $4 million and she never had to testify. She never had to prove anything. They did this because he was going to plead the fifth and because his attorneys quit and he was unable to secure new attorneys until Brian stepped in. And I believe Brian, several months had passed. I believe like March 1st, he had to have the new attorneys, and Brian didn't come aboard until maybe July or August of this year. And so he was already fighting a losing battle. But it just, that people can just do this, like go to court, say this man did this, not have to prove anything, not have to say anything, and they get a $4 million judgment. It just seems so unfair to me. And this is just one more thing piled on to all the other things that they're doing, with the anonymous juror. And I mentioned this in my Power recap. If you guys watch Power on Starz, how they were trying to manipulate this case, and they had already picked out a group of people that they wanted for potential jurors, and then set up how they were going to pose these questions to get the ones that they wanted to win the case. And that is exactly, it becomes even more easy when you're dealing with anonymous juries. And then you guys know anonymous juries is for mafia bosses. It's not for singers, okay, that are caught up in some mess with some groupies. So it's just a mess. And then, like I say, the whole denying of the bond, and he has been sitting there for almost a year and a half being denied bond. Case, lost his right to a speedy trial due to COVID, because now the case is pushed back. The New York case is pushed back to April. That is supposed to start. And then the Chicago federal case and the local Chicago case, they are going to set their court dates in the coming weeks. And so anyway, I can go on and on, but just wanted to bring this information and see what you guys think. So go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.